Thanks so much for tuning in to the Sustainable Brown Girl YouTube channel. This show exists to provide representation for women of color within the environmental space, to share their stories, and to inspire all to be more eco-friendly every day. I'm your host, Ariel Green. This is where you can see all of the full video podcast episodes. So be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Also, go follow us on Instagram at Sustainable Brown Girl. Enjoy! Today's featured Sustainable Brown Girl is Elise Smith, founder of oECo Studios, an ethical eco video production company that works with Earth Forward brands. Elise is also the owner of WinniE's Bakery. She's a food writer, recipe developer, and set stylist. Today, we're going to be talking about how we can be more sustainable when it comes to shopping for food and cooking. So thank you so much for joining us today, Elise.
Hi, thank you for having me on. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. So let's just start at the beginning. Tell us about your background and how you became interested in sustainability.
Okay, so my background, as you previously mentioned so beautifully, by the way, what an introduction. Thank you. My background is in the culinary world. I am a pastry chef, baker, and I have owned and operated WinniE's Bakery since 2012. I come from a long line of cooks, of chefs. My maternal grandmother actually owned her own bakery, Jeannie's, in PG County, because I'm located in Maryland. And I grew up in a kitchen. Yeah. I love being in a kitchen. I love, start to finish. I love planting seedlings. I like seeing the relaxed and satiated faces of full bellies. And it's always just such a joy to kind of see the full circle of people seeing the food come out. And, especially since my forte is the end result, the dessert, and just placing it before them. So with all of that said, I then kind of evolved into this more, I guess, ecological pursuit as I ran my business. As things opened up and expanded for me, I started, as you also mentioned, I started writing for a couple of different magazines because as a freelancer, and I was able to kind of get an inside glimpse of how everything started. And I saw so much waste around me. And I then checked myself and saw how much waste was being produced in my bakery. And it just started with small personal changes. So, just switching from whenever used plastic, but just using 100% recycled packaging and not using unnecessary single-use plastics. Taking my own, using glass jars and things like that, having eco wraps, having one day, I even worked out that whenever I would do for emissions, whenever I would do my deliveries to the coffee shops, we had one day we did deliveries, one day, that's it, unless it was a special event. We didn't do staggered days. At the end of it, if we could not align the drop off, then we weren't right to work together. Okay. Obviously, there are small concessions that you can be made because you have to be considerate of people's circumstances. But it was a full circle effort, and it's been many years of learning, and I get it wrong all the time, but it's been a good journey.
Yeah, progress over perfection.
I like that.
So I love that you're not just focused on the food waste, that you're also looking at emissions and conserving gas and energy. That's really important. So you mentioned that you saw the amount of food waste. Was there one thing in particular where you were like, oh my gosh, this is not good?
I snapped.
Yeah.
I was working on a shoot and we made this amazing basil, lemon, blueberry compote to go on top of coconut ice cream. Oh, it's so great. It's a wonderful vegan recipe. And I made the compote and the ice cream, and we had reshot it because we weren't using there are tips and tricks and all sorts of behind the scenes stuff with food styling that I could tell you that would probably gross you out beyond measure.
Oh no.
Vaseline's used a lot.
Ooh.
But we were actually using live food. And by the second time I saw them toss it to get a reshot, I snapped. It could have been eaten. It was a table layout too, so no one was eating it. We were inside, so it wasn't open to air, and it had not been placed. I mean, it's ice cream, so it hadn't been down for more than 15 minutes.
Right.
It could have been eaten, and they tossed it, and I was just like, I can't be a part of this anymore. So, I mean, even now when I have the opportunity to be on sets, I take my food back. Obviously, there are certain food safety regulations that you need to be cognizant of. But if it can be salvaged, saved, reused, eaten, all of those things will have been considered and followed up on my set.
Wow.
That was my snapping. My breaking point.
I can totally see that. It sounds so good. So I can't imagine just watching it be thrown away. Ouch.
By the third time, I think I had actually irked the photographer. I was like, wait, why are we resetting?
Right.
What happened?
Yeah.
And they were just like, oh, well, we had some, what did she say? Oh, the blueberries looked washed out because we had some greens and blues. When trying to capture them, they can often clash depending on your background.
Okay.
And I was just like, oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm just going to stand in the corner.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So tell us about your brand, oECo Studios, and also a little bit about WinniE's Bakery. Like what, as far as like oECo Studios, what exactly do you do?
So I am the founder and owner of oECo Studios. We are, as you mentioned, an ethical production company. We work with companies across the nation and actually come this fall internationally.
Wow.
We have a client in Australia now. Thank you. We work with companies like Zip Top Containers, which is 100% platinum grade silicone. We work with Beeswrap, and they have organic, Vermont sourced beeswax, jojoba oil, and cotton reusable wrappers.
Wow.
We work with companies like EcoP, which has 100% biodegradable bamboo-based diaper, which is hypoallergenic for sensitive skin. It's been an honor to work with these brands and to create digital content for them. Everything from small promotional bits that are like no greater than 3 to 5 seconds, all the way up to full commercials. Which are 45 seconds, which doesn't sound like much, but when you see the hours that are cut down kind of into it, you know, when you're watching TV, you don't have usually a spot greater than about like 15 to 20 seconds on your TV. So it's been really wonderful to create sustainable content for these companies. We do an ecological breakdown for them. So what ingredients or materials and tools were sourced in the producing of their promotional videos or their commercials. And we just kind of give them that transparency that makes them feel that we mirror their same mission, their ethos, and their consideration for the earth and the impact that they and that we have wanted. And then for WinniE's, I do very intentional work in the kitchen. It's a lot of upcycling. Any old jar there's so many countless jars that have been, you know, soaked and cleaned, labels taken off, and they are now, you know, my wheat and my yeast and my sugar containers and things of that nature, using local fresh ingredients, which I think we'll probably touch on a little bit more. But it's just being very intentional. It's just taking the time to consider, is this necessary? If so, what will be the impact? And then what can I do to lessen its impact, or at the very least, set some sort of balance after doing it? I think balance is the thing that I always consider, because it's like you said, progress over perfection. I will never be 100% right on it. And I can't imagine that any of these companies will be either, but just trying to be aware that there is lives going on. My dad used to tell me that when I was little, there are lives going on around your life, and the life, and, you know, quite honestly, the fragility of the earth is something I'm constantly thinking about. You know, it sustains billions and billions of people. And so billions and billions of people can wreak havoc on it. And it just tears my heart up. So I do things that I can, just small, measured, you know, intentional actions. So yeah, I mean, it's been fantastic. You had the opportunity to speak with Monique of Butter and Lye.
Yeah,
we get to work with companies. She's fabulous. We get to work with companies who are so aware of how they can make small changes that make, you know, small impacts that then create a ripple of a big impact. I mean, the woman even uses ecologically sound packaging stickers.
Right? That's so awesome. It's like so many different things to consider when you have a business, and especially when you're trying to be sustainable, there's just like so many little things that the consumer doesn't really think about.
Yes.
And, you know, just seeing brands like that really making an effort to be as sustainable as they can is really inspiring.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
what have you learned from working with these sustainable food brands? Like, have you, you know, like gotten some new tricks and techniques for when you're cooking or storing food?
I have. So Beeswrap, I will definitely say, is an absolute favorite. I first bought Beeswrap. I'm 31 now. When I was 17, from my local Williams-Sonoma.
Wow.
Williams-Sonoma was my splurge before it was popular. It was my splurge, you know, to myself. I had just graduated high school and I did not know that I was going to go on to become a professional cook. I went to community college and then I went to Gallaudet University for ASL interpreting.
Oh, wow.
But I worked in food. Oh, thank you. I worked in food and I just absolutely loved going in Williams-Sonoma and window shopping. And one day I stumbled across Beeswrap and I was like, what is that? And the packaging alone intrigued me because it was just a cardboard box amidst some of the grandest wrapping I've ever seen. It's Williams-Sonoma. And I took it home and it sat on my shelf just looking pretty for probably 3 months, if I'm being honest. And then one day I needed to wrap the top of this cobbler I had made, and I did not, God, the shame. I did not have plastic wrap, and I hated foil because it never felt like it was a glass platter and it never felt like it grasped right.
Yeah.
And I saw the wrap staring at me and I was just like, I guess I should put it to use. Fantastic. It was so fantastic. The way that it anchored over my dish was so perfect because the warmth of your hands helps with how kind of malleable and sticky it is. But it doesn't leave any kind of residue in your hands. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to ever use it, but I really loved it. And from there on, anytime I can't find the top or a lid to something, I use it. I throw produce into them. I just did I needed to bake something for the organization No Kid Hungry, and I had to make 24 bread loaves.
Wow.
Out comes the bread wrap roll from Beeswrap, and we're, you know, me and my workers were making a precision line. You're cutting, you're laying, you're wrapping, I'm putting into the box and packaging. And it was so seamless and so perfect, and it keeps things so fresh. That's definitely one of like my staples. Let's see, what else do I really go to when I'm in the kitchen? I mentioned before my jars. I love my jars. I have everything because I make my own, like I make my own rose water and I make my own vanilla and like lavender syrup and things of that nature. I have miniature ketchup bottles. I have maple syrup, honey bottles. What else have I kept? I've kept some pretty weird ones. And and they're just stocks. It honestly kind of looks like an old time apothecary in my bakery pantry.
Wow.
Just because, I mean, why ever toss it? My basil is
Mhm.
currently in a San Marzano tin, which is not the best actually, because
Uh-oh.
it can get warm, but it's what I had on hand
Yeah.
because I had already made up my mind for the jars. And it's wonderful. It
Yeah.
really is wonderful when you see one thing get a second life. So
Exactly.
those are kind of some of my staples, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reusing stuff is one of, how we say reduce, reuse, recycle. Reducing
Mm-hmm.
and reusing are so important. So I love that
Mm-hmm.
you're reusing all of that. Now, do you also, I guess you're a baker, so you do buy things in bulk, like you buy like
Mm-hmm.
large packages of flour and whatnot?
So I do. Currently, I'm only doing special orders because this has absolutely nothing to do with being sustainable. But I have a cancer called MDS, and so I'm not taking on the large orders, which is
Okay.
kind of how the birth of oECo came. But
Mhm.
previously, you can actually go to bulk stores, and yes, you may have to put in an order. Like with moms, we have My Organic Market. You
Mhm.
might have to put in an order and wait, but you can do large bulk items. I got a lot of my nuts and seeds from there, grains, wheat flour. Um, you really can kind of do anything. You have to be crafty.
Mhm.
Some things will be more expensive. That is just the nature of how America, or quite honestly, the world's consumerism is built.
Right.
Um, but it makes me feel better
Mhm.
than thinking about, guilt's a very wasted emotion, but I do say that if you get a twinge of it, it's probably because you need to check yourself. And
Yeah.
the guilt that I used to get from, the things that I would buy, it just would eat me up. And I was like, your body's trying to tell you that you need to do something different. Your mind
Right.
is eating away at that because it knows there's another option, but you're choosing this one over here.
Mm.
And that's when I got to learn about bulk stores. They're fantastic. You can get them
Yeah.
online, especially with, how times are now. You can just go, you can literally put into Google bulk food and you can get everything that you need.
Right.
And it's again, not perfect. Progress over perfection. There's still the emissions of the travel for it to get to you and things of that nature, but it's better than an unnecessary plastic bag sitting in a landfill.
Exactly. Yeah. And
So
that's a good point.
balance.
Right. It's a good point to bring up that there are bulk shops online because I always, like I live in the suburbs and it's like there's no
Mhm.
bulk stores near me. But it is a good reminder that you can buy a lot of things online in bulk. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
It's honestly been my aunt who's ex-military who lived in New York. She's who turned me on to that option. She's just like, that's where I get half of my stuff because she
Mhm.
makes almond milk.
Oh,
And
wow.
she makes almond milk and oat milk. And she's like, that's where I get my nuts. And I was like, say
Yeah.
that again. And she's just like, oh, mm-hmm. uh, but yes. So, really kind of just realizing there are other options is what I like to tell people. They're like, that seems so hard. And I was like, it's an option. It's
Yeah.
the better one in my opinion, but
Right. Yeah.
there
Yeah,
are other
definitely,
ways.
do what you can. So,
Yeah,
do you have any other tips when it comes to shopping for food, making more sustainable choices?
absolutely. I mean, it's all the ones that we already know, but we maybe don't take the time to consider buying seasonally, buying locally, and also buying in bulk as well. And like taking the time to consider, well, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to create. And I'm a family of three, and my kids like to eat this, this, and this. They don't seem to get tired of it. If you're able to buy in bulk and you're able to kind of plan it out a little bit, it's better than you throwing away things. Oh, excuse me, I forgot the one thing. And like freezing it, it's better than
Mhm.
you letting it sit in your fridge and waste. It's better than you driving out to the store every night to pick it up. It's better than you trying to buy things that are out of season, which throw off the natural course of our, there's always an ecological impact when you unnaturally grow things. Agriculture has a natural flow and rhythm, and when we do things that disturb that, it's not good. There's going to be a cost. And so when I tell people, just Google what's in season,
right,
you're going to be so surprised with the long list of things that you probably already eat.
Another way to know how things are in season, I think, is when you go to the grocery store and something's on sale. Like when zucchini is on sale, it's in season.
Yep, because they have a surplus of it. Exactly. That's a great tip. Yes. And also I've had people tell me, I find that my berries kind of just taste like water. It's not berry season.
Right.
Or they say my apples kind of have like this weird zing back. It's not that season. Like Honeycrisp year round, not a thing.
No.
Not a thing.
Right.
Most apples, like year round, not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you go into an American food market and supermarket, and you would never know. Mm-hmm. Unless, of course, you have that tip like you. When you see, there's a reason that we don't see corn, like sweet corn in particular. That's what really clues people, like sweet corn during certain seasons. It's because it only grows during this time. And then there's the reason they put out that big bin, very much like you just said, because they have a surplus. It is the time in which it is supposed to be here. Mm-hmm. So just buying what would naturally be here if we didn't interfere is definitely something to consider. Buying locally, you're helping the economical ecosystem of your community when you do that. 1, 2, if you're thinking about emissions and things of that nature, more than likely there's a farmer's market that you could go and buy everything you need for the week or the next 2 weeks from. Mm-hmm. And then, lastly, food waste is the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, same.
I am the queen of leftovers now. Yeah. It's taken a good 6 years. I always enjoyed leftovers, but I'd be like, but I can't do anything with this. Yes, you can. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can. Mm-hmm. I am the queen of a stir fry, of a fried rice, of a casserole. Mm-hmm. I really, really am.
Soup.
I am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Soups. Yes. Throw it in that pot. Let it get together. Become friends, and it's going to be so good. I had a sweet potato hash that I had made. I was testing out a recipe, and I had some left over, and I decided to turn it into a frittata, and I gave it to my nieces, and they loved it. It's just, I wouldn't have thought that was what it was going to be, but it had sat in there for 2 days, and I was just like, you're looking at me, and I'm looking at you, and what are we going to do? And I was like, we're going to throw some eggs into you. I thought about a shakshuka, but I was like, my nieces will probably be put off by the fact they're eggs sitting in their tomatoes. So we made it a frittata. It's a little more approachable. And I just threw a bunch of different veggies in there, and they loved it. And so, just kind of figuring out how to lower your waste. And also the final thing, even though I didn't mention it in the beginning, I compost.
Oh, nice. How do you?
I'm very. So we have a roller in the back, and we do that. But we have this cute little one we got off of Amazon because my mother found it and she loves it. And she's like, guess what I put in my kitchen? I was like, what? And then she showed me, it was beautiful. But when COVID hit, my family all came back together, especially with my diagnosis. So there's 8 of us in this home.
Wow.
Yeah, we're very fortunate that there's enough space that we're not on top of each other, but it's still a lot of mouths. A lot of people are eating. So we use coffee cans. Cafe Bustelo. We use aluminum coffee cans. We put it in there and we take it out every 2 days. We put it in the rotator, and we take our old, has to be unbleached and naturally sourced, but like our egg cartons, crumble those up. Yep. Throw that in there. Mm-hmm. We have compostable bags. Throw those in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's all just like really small things. The ladies at Mom's, my organic food market, know that I love their bio bags because they're 100% compostable and biodegradable.
Nice.
And they'll just see me and they like Alice. Like, I actually have a lady who I'm on a first name basis with named Alice, and she just looks at me and I'm like, yeah. I'm getting that couple because, you know, they are just the most perfect option. So
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
it's been really wonderful kind of learning what is going to work. And with my family, it's nice to be able to have all of us come together and collectively work, and the girls get involved, and it's been really nice. And they're like, well, I have a strawberry top, and they'll take their strawberry top and they'll put it in the little can, and it's perfect. And every 2 days we go outside, we compost together, and I have a million plants, and
Yes.
we
Wow.
we put
I
it in there.
see. That's gorgeous. So are you growing edibles too?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We have a sage plant. We have basil. The girls just got lima beans, squash blossoms. What else do we have down there? Tomatoes. And we are propagating a mango and avocado seed. That was a fun
Wow.
process. Yeah, we had to let it dry out and peel it off, crack it. And they were like, there's another seed inside this seed. And I was like, yes. And so we have little tendrils of the roots starting now. So it's been really exciting.
That
We
is
found
exciting.
how to do it on Instagram. So
Wow, that's so
yeah,
much fun. And it's really great to get the kids involved because, it helps them to kind of develop that relationship with the earth and kind of, start them off on a sustainable path where they're thinking about their impact on the planet. So that's awesome.
absolutely. My nieces keep dropping information to me that I am already aware of, but it's exciting to see how connected they are with it. And they are asking, quite honestly, all the questions that we're all asking. Why would we do that then? And,
Mhm.
it becomes a bigger, evolving conversation about, you know, how we're all connected and our impact is both individual and collective.
Mhm.
And it's been very exciting to be able to play a small role in kind of the foundation of their life and their values and things of that nature.
Right. Yeah, that's so exciting. All
So
right.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Elise, for coming to join us today. Last question.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to you to be a sustainable brown girl?
Oh, I love that. To be a sustainable brown girl to me means living in the truth of how I want to leave the earth. And it's going to be very similar, or how I should live on the earth once I leave the earth. And it's very similar to the way my ancestors did. I come from farmers, growers, sharecroppers. And, my very own grandfather just passed away last year, was 100 years old. And he
Oh,
gardened up until 4 months before his passing in the
that's
city of
amazing.
Baltimore. My grandfather had his backyard and he had a plot out in Catonsville. And he he used to make jokes that this is kind of morbid, but it makes me think of my relationship with him. He kept having my siblings and my cousins come out and help him. And we were like, why do we have to do this, that, and the other? And they're like, he's like, honestly, my partners keep dying on me. And I was like, what? And my dad heard him say that once. He's like, Dad, don't say that. And he's like, no, it's true. And he asked about his partner. I think his name was Mr. Allen. And he asked, and my dad's like, well, why don't you ask one of the guys down at the church? And he's just like, those young men. He's like, Dad, he's not young. He's 83. And then you remember, your
Yeah.
dad's 98, 99 years old. And, he's he's a seasoned man. And so
Right.
I learned to have that appreciation. He would tell me about growing up on a farm and how they grew everything. I mean, watermelons, lemon trees, they grew herbs. 100 years old. So truly the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
They had to rely on themselves. And although I do not covet that existence exactly, everything that he learned being passed on to us it's not lost on me. And so I try to live intentionally very similar in a fashion to my grandfather and the ancestors that came before me. That's what it means to me to be a sustainable brown girl, just doing my best to be intentional in my life and leaving the earth just a teeny bit better than when I arrived.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely think that you're doing that. And thank you for sharing your story with us. And please tell everyone where they can find you online.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's been an honor to be able to sit here and chat with you. Interruptions and everything. You can find me on Instagram at oECo Studios or WinniE's Bakery, which is WINNIES Bakery. And yeah, we love to follow back and support the people who support us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Elise. And everyone, please go follow her on Instagram and keep up with everything that she's doing. And thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been my absolute pleasure.
Don't leave just yet. Click here to hear from another sustainable brown girl, or click here to watch the full playlist from this season.